This is a full story. Kitten wishes you all a happy and enjoyable story. My fiancée, who was supposed to be in Los Angeles on a business trip, is quarantined in a New York hotel by an epidemic. Quarantined along with his ex-boyfriend. And I, as the groom-to-be, only learned the news on the first day of our wedding. 20 days or so later, he showed up and told me that the wedding would be rescheduled at a later date. I smiled and waved the wedding ring on my hand. Sorry, Miss Haley, I'm already married. I was in the middle of finalizing the set when Haley called me. There was a lot of commotion outside the house as my brother Jack, who had come to help, and my cousin Bame argued about how the balloons should be tied to look good. I smiled and pressed the speakerphone, asking softly, "You're back from LA?" A week ago, Haley told me that there was a long-delayed partnership over in LA that she needed to go talk about. When the Los Angeles epidemic sealed off the city, she showed great concern because the case was put on hold, and now that the seal has been lifted, I naturally have no reason to stop her. Before leaving, she assured me that within 3 days we'll definitely come back, just in time to spend the eve together. As a result, 3 days dragged to 5 days, 5 days dragged to the present. Haley was silent for a moment and apologized to me in a soft voice. "Rocky, I'm sorry. I may not be able to return anytime soon. How about we postpone the wedding date? I'll let my parents take care of the relatives' side. When I get back, we'll throw a bigger one, okay?" I've never been able to resist her pettiness. "Did you run into any problems? Do you need my help?" No. Hearing me say that, Haley's voice was urgent with a slight panic. Without waiting for me to ask for clarification, a clear male voice came from his side immediately afterward to clear up my confusion. "Haley, how long are we going to be quarantined in New York? It's a good thing I let you come to spend eve with me, otherwise." The next second, the phone was hung up. I stood still, like I was being smothered. It took a long time to get back to my senses. Outside the door, the sound of Jack and Bames arguing and fighting continued. Next to me, the florist I'd hired at a high price came over, holding a beautifully trimmed potted plant, and inquired, "Mr. Rocky, I think this pot looks better here. What do you think?" Mr. Rocky, are you listening?" He called out several times in rapid succession before pulling me back into my thoughts. I rubbed my temples and smiled apologetically at him. "I'm sorry. Is it okay to wait for me? I'll make a call." The man's voice just now sounded somewhat familiar, but it was too far back in time, and I needed to confirm if my suspicions were correct. The call went out and was quickly answered. Serena, on the other end, was her usual hangdog self, with none of the reserve that comes with being a woman. "Yo, why did the groom-to-be think of calling me?" I got straight to the point. "Let me ask you something. Where did you meet Tony before?" "Los Angeles. Why are you asking about him all of a sudden?" I hunched down slightly, my chest hurting as if I'd been punched hard. Turns out, his earlier soul-searching wasn't because the partnership case wasn't going to go forward, but because he was worried about his ex-girlfriend. I pulled out a cigarette and lit it several times, but it never lit up. Finally, annoyed, I threw it to the ground and crushed it a little bit with my toes. "Serena, if I remember correctly, your family has been pushing for marriage pretty hard these past few years, right?" There was the sound of something falling on the other end of the line, followed by a flurry of hands and feet. "Shit," Serena cursed. "Don't talk out of your ass. Say what you have to say, and say what you have to say. Marry me." Right on the top of my phone, it indicated that Haley had sent me a message a few minutes ago that read briefly, "I'll explain it to you when I get back," close to her wedding date, accompanying her ex-boyfriend to New York for the eve, and wanting me to wait for her to come back. I don't know if she's a big whiny seed I take for a brainless person, or a licking dog with no downside. Both, I don't want to be. Serena was silent for a moment, a rare moment of seriousness. Wasn't it Haley who went to Tony? Growing up, she was the smartest of the three of us. After hearing me answer yes, she sighed and softened her voice to advise me, "Rocky, no matter what, marriage is not child's play. That lot on the east side of town, and that contract you haven't been able to chew on this whole time, I can help you with that too. We can sign a prenuptial agreement and I won't interfere with you after marriage. You can think of it as a collaboration. It'll also stave off your family's urging to get married. Think about it." What followed was a longer silence. After a few minutes, I heard her say, "Okay." Haley and I, along with Serena, were childhood friends raised by a military college president, but they both grew up looking at each other poorly. Haley is a typical child of someone else's family, gentle and elegant, dignified and generous. At first glance, is a famous young woman. Serena, in the words of Serena's grandfather, is an untamed monkey. Even if she gets into trouble herself, she always drags me along with her. Since we were kids, we've been punished a lot, but it also fostered a deep revolutionary friendship. It was an open secret that I loved Haley. To what extent is it open? Both parents often make fun of us. Before Tony met her, Haley was a silent yes. Whether it was me clinging to her, or people jokingly calling her my little daughter-in-law, Serena Serena often held my head and shook it left and right. Come and let my little master hear how much water is in your brain, that you can look at Haley's kind of white lotus that has one thing on the surface and another behind her back. Even if you have water in your brain, you still have bad eyes at a young age, she said with gritted teeth and a look of hatred. I slapped her hand away, disgusted that she didn't look like a girl at all. Serena, could you learn from Haley? What kind of girl would call herself a young master? In fact, Serena's appearance was prettier than Haley. At 172, her muscles were beautifully toned from working out all year round. Her looks were even better. I know of 3 movie and TV companies that have signed her to a deal that guarantees she'll be a hit, but she's not interested in getting into show business. She just wants to follow in her dad's footsteps and be a capitalist. Haley, on the other hand, is not as good as she looks, but she's got the right temperament. Which teenager can resist the white, black-haired beauty, the shy and timid smile? I always thought that Haley is also like me, until Tony appeared. The first time I saw Tony was at my 18th bar mitzvah. Spare our family old man clean. In this special day, the family still gathered a lot of business and political predators. I changed my suit and came downstairs just in time to see Haley leading an extremely handsome man through the door. Under the whispers and the somber stares of Haley's parents, she calmly led him to me and handed me my gift. Rocky, happy birthday. By the way, I'd like to introduce you to my boyfriend, Tony. Then turning his head sideways, he looked at the boy next to him with deeper eyes than I'd ever seen before. This is the birthday boy I was telling you about, my brother Rocky. At that moment, my mind went blank. I stood frozen in place with my gift, but luckily Serena took me away just in time. She took me to the rooftop, and I curled up in the corner bawling my eyes out. I couldn't figure out why what was clearly 2 loves had suddenly become wishful thinking on my part alone. Why the word little daughter-in-law, which I had never refuted before, had become a sibling today. Serena, probably annoyed by my crying, kicked me lightly with her toe. Rocky, are you a fucking man? Does crying help? Hold your tears back for me. If you really like it, go and snatch the guy back in a dignified manner. At the end, she kicked me harder and cursed, "You're useless. No wonder even Haley doesn't like you." I'm not the type to stalk. Haley brought her boyfriend to my bat mitzvah for purposes that I could guess with my toes. I broke off all flirtations with her, retreated to the position she called her brother, and watched from afar as she went crazy over Tony. She should have really moved on. It turns out that the reserved and dignified young girl can also be as impulsive as a normal young girl in love, and will also suffer for her beloved boy. Haley's grandfather and father are both high-ranking soldiers. They also want Haley to go to the career. Tony's father, on the other hand, is a heavy drinker, gambler, and ex-convict. With a family like that, it's not going to work out. Haley's mom even approached me, "Rocky, our family won't accept that kind of person. You're the one we've watched grow up since we were young. Only you are the most suitable for Haley. Haley's child is just confused. I'll educate her properly. Whether it's a momentary confusion or not, we all know it in our hearts. Even if I like it again, I can't do anything that interferes with people's feelings." I refused Haley's mom, but she still wanted to break up that pair of lovebirds. In order to force them to break up, she even threatened to die. Unhappy and frustrated, Haley took all her anger out on me. After Haley's mom was once again sent to the operating room for slitting her wrists, she slapped me hard with red eyes. "I'll do what you want. Break up with Tony and stay with you. Get my mom off my back." I covered my face and watched her cry woodenly. That was the only time I saw her break down. It was like being trapped like a beast struggling for the 1000th time. But although she was very unwilling, she had to compromise. But I was innocent too. My relationship with Haley has dropped to freezing point because the school is not very far from home, so I have always been home to live during college. In order to avoid her, I packed up and moved into the dormitory. Haley's mom obviously did not expect Haley will be angry with me. Afraid of affecting the 2 families' friendship, it was quiet for a long time. Calm down, Haley came to me many times, trying to repair the relationship between us. I have been busy as a reason to refuse, so the stalemate for more than 4 months has been a car accident to break the ice. Haley may have gotten distracted while driving and crashed into a utility pole on the side of the road. When I got the news and rushed to the hospital, Haley's mom and Tony were both sitting on a bench outside the operating room with red, swollen eyes. The red light above the operating room was blinding. After more than 4 hours of surgery and a week of observation in the ICU, Haley's life was saved, but her leg and arm were severely injured and may be disabled. Even so, Haley's family still refused to accept Tony. Tony stayed with Haley for over a month and broke up with her. He was smart. Originally, it is to see Haley's family, and now see the hopelessness of climbing, it is better to find another way out. And Haley, also a large part of the possibility, will become a cripple. It could be because Tony is gone, or it could be because of the senseless legs. Haley's temper became more and more violent, and her mother was in tears every day. I went to the hospital to be with her when I didn't have class. Serena was so upset that she scolded me for being worthless. It's true that I'm quite worthless, but I still like her. It's not easy to let go of a love that's been sprouting since you were young and dumb. I accompanied Haley through 2 years of summer and winter, surgery after surgery, rehab after rehab. The process was long, but the result was good. After Haley recovered, she accepted my confession. She held a huge bouquet of roses I gave her, tears brimming in her eyes. She said, "Rocky, let's be together from now on." I believed it. I believed that she really liked me and really wanted to be with me. If Tony didn't show up again, I ordered that the bride's name be changed to Serena. With Jack and Bames surprised at the follow-up questions, threw down, "Haley is in New York with her ex for Tanabata and can't come back." Then he drove to Serena's company. She was flipping through the documents. Seeing me, she raised her eyebrows and asked, "Why are you here?" I shook the account book in my hand. "To take you to get a license." Since she had already agreed to work together, Serena didn't dawdle, went back to her house to pick up the account book, and we went straight to the Civil Affairs Bureau. When we got to the door of the Civil Affairs Bureau, she pulled me back and asked one last time, "Are you sure? You won't regret it?" I patted her on the head, as we both did in those years when we were mixing it up and getting into trouble. "Go in." Now that the decision was made, there was nothing to regret. It wasn't until I had a red book shoved into my hand that I was in an unreal trance. Haley and I had discussed getting a license on July 4th. As a result, because she was traveling, oh no, because she accompanied her ex to New York for the eve, so postponed to after the wedding. As a result, in less than a day, we got the license, but we got a new daughter-in-law. Getting the certificate, I took Serena to the jewelry store again to choose a pair of couple diamond rings. "It's too rushed to get it customized. You'll make do with it for now. I'll get you a bigger one after a while." She raised her hand and looked at it satisfied. "No, this one is fine. It's supposed to be a collaboration. There's no need to make it so grand." Her long hair was tied casually behind her head, revealing her slender neck. The sunlight passed through the large glass window of the jewelry store, and she stood under the light source, white as if she was an exquisite ceramic doll. Although the personality like a man, but this face is really resistant. I moved my pace a little, blocking the other men's frequent glances at her. To put it mildly, our family and Serena's family are probably a bit closer. The oldest of the two families climbed out of the trenches together and have a lifelong friendship. My dad and Serena's dad discussed going into business together when they were young. They were more interested in Serena than Haley. My mom has told me more than once that Haley isn't as innocent as she seems, and I can't hold her. Now that she's done this kind of foolishness, although my family thinks I've acted a bit rashly, we haven't said anything to criticize her. Haley has already notified her relatives of the wedding delay, so the scene did not see her parents. By the time my parents got the news and arrived, Serena and I had already finished exchanging rings. Maybe they were afraid of my grandfather and Serena's grandfather, or maybe they were in the way. They didn't make a scene. With grim faces, they entered the banquet. My cell phone has been handed over to Jack for safekeeping since the beginning of the wedding, and all the calls from Haley were hung up by him. During the toast, Haley's mom found a chance to pull me into the restroom alone. "Rocky, it's true that it's Haley's fault that she couldn't make it back from her business trip, but you've gone too far with this today. I know you're mad at Haley, but marriage is not child's play. How can you let Serena make a scene with you just because you're angry? That's how it makes friends and family think. While the guests are here, grab your ass and go out and explain. I'll help you teach Haley a lesson when she gets back. Make her apologize to you." "Auntie," I politely interrupted, "Haley isn't on a business trip. He accompanied Tony to New York to be quarantined for Tanabata." Haley's mom was frozen in place by my sentence, her well-maintained face full of disbelief. I smiled at her and turned around to head back to the wedding hall. Passing the men's restroom, I just happened to hear Jack on the phone with my cell phone. "Oh, you're Rocky's wife, so show up at the wedding instead. Come over here now, and I'll recognize you as his wife." The tone of voice was slightly rising. How to sound bitchy. It was already past 10 in the evening when everything was over. I took back my cell phone and looked through it. Haley did not know how many calls to me, from the beginning to the end, all has missed. There was only one call in the middle, and it was picked up. The call lasted 46 seconds. I think that's what I heard outside the bathroom. I was just about to read the message she sent me when the call came back. I didn't hesitate to hang up and pull the plug. A few minutes later, Serena's cell phone rang off to the side. I looked at it, and sure enough, it was Haley calling as well. I reached over and pressed hang up as well. Serena was coming out of the shower. She was toweling off her still dripping hair. Her little face steamed white and tender from the mist. "What, checking in on your first day of marriage?" She rolled her eyes and teased. I swallowed hard. How could I have thought she was was not feminine before. Blindly talking about what? I hung up on Haley just now. I flicked my eyes like a side, and for some reason, my face burned a little. Not a moment later, I was kicked off the bed by a foot. Take your stuff and get your ass to the second bedroom. This bedroom is mine. Me. Oh, come on. I must have just gone temporarily blind to think she was feminine. Other people are newlyweds and cavorting. I just want to be hello roommates with Chusian and not disturb each other. I casually hugged a quilt to the second bedroom. Officially start living together with Serena. Blah blah blah. It's a shared life. After taking a shower and coming out, I remembered that there was no hairdryer in the second bedroom. I just had to wrap my hair and go to her room to borrow it. After several knocks on the cream-colored door panel, the door opened from the inside after a long time. She was supposedly asleep, rubbing her eyes and complaining, "What's gotten into you in the middle of the night?" She was wearing a white bathrobe, only loosely tied at the waist with a string, and as she moved about, her white skin was hidden. My receding red flush exploded back onto my face. Clearing my throat, I said hoarsely, "Why don't you go ahead and put your clothes back on?" She frowned and looked down in confusion. Then she squealed, turned around and quickly ducked into the room. A manly woman would also have such a shy side. Surprisingly, it's still a little cute. As a result, the hairdryer was not borrowed, and my stomach started to get hungry again. Because I have been toasting at noon and dealing with a cave-in at night, I have not eaten much throughout the day. Half an hour later, I knocked on the master bedroom door again. "Come out for dinner." Serena's voice jarred, not eating. Supposedly still embarrassed, she had the good sense to turn me down. But after so many years of being a brother, I know too well how to hold her. I began to name the dishes one by one. I ordered sweet and sour spare ribs, fried shrimp, cola chicken wings, mapo tofu, spicy fried lotus root slices, spicy and sour potato shreds, and stewed eggplant. The next second, the door to the room opened. I knew it. Under the temptation of good food, all the embarrassment, backbone, and integrity must be left behind by her. This restaurant made such good food that she ate 2 big bowls of rice in a row. After finishing her meal, I got up to clear the table. She wiped her mouth, stood up and said, "I'll clean it up if you leave it. Is this the sun coming out of the west?" You know, she was the one who squeezed me for the first 20 years or so. I didn't make it easy on her either, and carried the rest of the meal to the kitchen, smiling as I told her, "You brushed the dishes then?" She rubbed her small stomach that was full of food, said okay, and got up to go to the kitchen as well. Taking her apron off the hook, she slipped it over me. She smiled. "I suddenly think that the apron still looks good on you. Why don't you do it?" I knew it. She crumpled up as she helped me fasten the straps. After tying it, she tapped my shoulder. "Nice waist." What was I, molested? The next day, when I finished cleaning up and walked out of my room, Serena was carrying 2 bowls of congee to the dining table. Smiling when she saw me, she greeted me, "Come and eat." She was wearing the apron that was tied around me yesterday. Her bangs were scattered casually across her forehead, and she looked a lot more innocent and childish. Facing the sunrise, her entire body was bathed in the morning light. Excessive good-looking, although her face I have long been accustomed to see, or by her bright smile flashed a moment of God. When I came back to my senses, I was being held by her shoulders and pressed into a chair in front of the dining table. Her voice with a bit of laughter. "What hair, what stay it? Quickly eat breakfast, later accompany me to buy things." She had just moved in, so she did have a lot of things to do. I asked inarticulately, "Since when do you know how to cook congee?" At that, she rolled her eyes again. "Medicine doesn't kill you." Cute, but not for 3 seconds. There was a large supermarket right next to the apartment. Pushing shopping carts together in the supermarket and discussing what to buy, it had the feel of an unusual couple. Unfortunately, we were brothers and a couple, but not a couple. I looked at Serena, who was picking out towels, and sighed softly. I don't know if it was right or wrong to drag her into this. If one day he meets the man of his choice, how will we end up? The thought made my heart clog a little. Serena has always been committed to being a capitalist, and she's worked hard at it. Until then, I had never thought that she would one day be attracted to the opposite sex. Shaking my head, I erased the jumbled thoughts from my mind. Forget it, let's take one step at a time. It's useless to think too much. The days passed calmly. Because of the epidemic, we canceled our honeymoon. Every day during the day, we go to work, and at night I work in the study, and she sits next to me with her laptop. Occasionally, we had a little talk. Everything seems to be the same as before, but not quite the same. Haley returned to Beijing 10 days later. She came back to continue the isolation observation. Along with her, there is Tony. Hearing this news, the heart will inevitably still be a little difficult, but it's only hard. It will not be as painful as before. After she was blackballed by me, she even used Tony's cell phone to call me, telling me that she could explain and asked me to wait for her. I don't see the need for any more explanations. It's fine the way it is right now. Maybe my tone was so calm that he mistook me me for being angry. That's true. When you're angry, you're dead. Seeing Haley was another 10 days later. I didn't read the yellow calendar that day. The car in front of me suddenly braked at a stoplight, and I immediately stepped on the brakes, but I still crashed into it. Haley showed up while I was waiting for the insurance to take care of it. I hadn't seen her for a month, but she had lost a lot of weight and was much more gaunt. The clothes from before were a little baggy on her. She walked up and asked, "Tailgating?" I pursed my lips and gave a cold "Going on insurance?" I gave another expressionless Her eyes slowly started to turn red. "Rocky, will you stop doing this to me? Tony and I aren't what you think we are. I know it's my fault. I didn't think New York would be closed either. We'll reschedule the wedding for another day, so don't be mad at me, okay?" She reaches out to tug on my shirt, which I dodge by taking 2 steps back. I raise my right hand up to her face, the diamond ring on my ring finger shining brightly. "Sorry, Miss Haley, I'm married." Haley's squeaky clean face hardens a few more times. "Rocky, will you stop it? If you're doing this to piss me off for joining forces with Serena to put on such a show, then you've succeeded. Will you stop there?" I looked straight at her and said very seriously, "Sorry, not messing with you. I'm really married, the licensed kind." Her thin body swayed slightly and she hissed incredulously, "We're not broken up?" "Yeah, not broken up, but I thought you were dead when you dumped me to accompany Tony on July 4th. She sounded panicked. I was really just in LA on business and I didn't expect to run into him. I couldn't hold back my laughter. "That's the excuse you came up with after a month of hard thinking? Did you believe it yourself?" Haley choked and after a moment lowered her head and apologized to me. "I'm sorry, Rocky. Give me another chance." Before she could say anything else, a thin, white-to-me hand rested on my arm. Serena's voice came from behind me. "If it isn't Haley, the great lover." I twisted my head to look at her and asked in surprise, "What are you doing here?" "Just happened to be taking care of some business in the neighborhood and heard someone say there was an accident over here. I wanted to see what was going on, but I didn't realize it was you." As soon as her words left her mouth, the hand on my arm was yanked away by an angry Haley. She clenched her fists, her body trembling with anger. In a stern voice, she said, "Serena, have you no shame? Prying people away, taking advantage of people." Serena's face sank as well. "I'm shameless? I pry people away? I take advantage of people?" I climbed a tree to pick a kite for Rocky, and I fell out of the tree and hurt myself. Who took my credit? Who acted as a benefactor when I jumped into the river to save a drowning Rocky from a high fever? Haley, who is the shameless one? Do I need to keep going down the list one by one? Haley took a few steps back with a white face. "No, Rocky, don't listen to her." She tried to explain, but stumbled over her words under Serena's angry glare. And I, too, grew white. When she was 6, Serena fell out of a tree and got hurt, or Haley, who was helping me fetch a kite, called an adult for her. At 10, she and I drowned together and were both rescued by Haley, 2 years our senior. Twice, I went to see her, but she kicked me out with a cold face. I didn't think that the truth would be like this. I asked her dumbly, "Why didn't you tell me?" She rolled her eyes at me again. "Because you look like a douche to me. Man up and hold your tears back." I bladdered my nose and wiped my face. "Can't you be gentle?" No wonder she hates Haley so much. No wonder she keeps saying that she is a white lotus with one thing on the surface and one thing behind the scenes. Originally, I thought that Haley would be embarrassed to bother us again after being torn apart. However, I underestimated her cheekiness. She found out the address of our matrimonial home from somewhere and came to break down the door in the middle of the night. This time she even brought Tony along. She held the door with her hand to keep me from closing it, looking at me with tears in her eyes. "Rocky, I really have nothing to do with him. If you don't believe me, ask him." Tony stood behind her, his expression hidden. "Mr. Rocky, Haley and I are just friends. I was on lockdown control in LA for almost 3 months, and Haley was just worried about me. She just went out with me for a break, and nothing happened to us." I listened with amusement. "If I remember correctly, it's been 5 years since you guys broke up. That's quite a long friendship. I just went out with you to take a break. That's easy for me to say. And on the eve of our wedding," Haley hurriedly picked up the conversation, "I want to break up with him. I originally thought that after we got married, I would no longer be in contact with him. I didn't realize there would be an outbreak in New York. So you were in touch before." Haley's head dropped lower and lower, and after a few minutes, she said dryly, "No, just 6 months ago." 6 months ago? Wasn't that the time Serena whispered to me that she met Tony in LA? That day, Serena was dragging me outside to talk to me alone, but I saw Haley's skirt in the corner. At that point, she would have followed me out because she was jealous that I was alone with Serena. I turned my back and faintly said, "Haley, for the sake of the two families' friendship for so many years, let's just let this go. Don't come back to me in the future." Having known each other for more than 20 years, this was the last decency I left to this relationship full of deception and lies. From now on, we are not even friends. I've been thinking a lot in the past 2 days about how I'm going to repay Serena to make it up to her. Even if I didn't know anything about it at all, she had actually suffered because of me. I purposely took a few days off and dragged Serena around. We went to the Forbidden City, climbed Whitney, Mount, and took pictures at the Statue of Liberty. We traveled through Times Square during the day, soaking up the cultural heritage of history, and at night, we went to a bar on the beach and listened to a singer with a dreadlocked hair humming about love. Serena shook her highball glass and asked me what love was. She doesn't like the taste of alcohol and is never slightly drunk even on occasions when she has to drink. Maybe it was the atmosphere, or maybe the bar was too strong. She was indeed a little drunk when she asked this question. Love? What is love? I looked at her cheeks red because of drunkenness. It was so colorful and curvy. What is love? I couldn't find the answer. Maybe the answer is on the next page. Love. Maybe it's seeing her go crazy with jealousy when she tries to touch someone else's abs with a face like a nymphomaniac. After the little dirty braid went down with her guitar in her arms, the stage right in the center was replaced by a stripper, a fresh-looking guy with red lips and white teeth. I watched as Serena downed who knows how many cocktails in her hand and got up to try and push her way into the crowd. I hastily pulled her back. Where are you going with this? She narrowed her eyes like him and twisted her arm to get out of my grip. I am going to touch him. Touch him? Where are you going to touch him? Abs. Touch his abs, heh. Burp. She grinned like a trolley dork in a mosaic movie made in a country with a good little life. This is the first time I've seen Serena like this in my entire life. She looked like a little fox who had been cheating on her, but she was doing it for another man. I don't know why, but my anger went straight to the sky. Since she was a child, I was the only person of the opposite sex around Serena. I didn't think that the day she was actually interested in someone else would make me so angry. I brought the person along hard, circling her into my arms, wrapping my right hand around the back and gently pinching the back of her neck, pulling her hand into my shirt with my left hand. I ground my teeth. I've got abs too. They're firmer than his. Do you want to try them? She hemmed and hawed and poked with her index finger. It's pretty hard. In the end, I coaxed and tricked her and managed to bring her back home. Serena was restless even after we got home. She cried and fussed, muttering and telling me a story about a girl's secret love that she begged for but didn't dare to confess. She tugged on my sleeve, blowing her nose as she cried, Rocky, you know, I was afraid that one day you'd find out that I was into you and we wouldn't even be brothers. Rocky, you're an asshole. I swept her into my arms and wet the corners of my eyes too. Yeah, Rocky is an asshole. He's not just an asshole, he's blind and heartless. Later, probably tired of crying, she gradually lost her voice and fell asleep. In her hand, she still clutched the sleeve on which she had wiped her nose. When she woke up the next day, Serena had disappeared. To be precise, she had fled. I think she might have remembered what she told me when she was drunk. She sent me a message. I need to calm down. Don't come to me for a couple days yet. I replied back to her, Serena, fall in love. Didn't you ask me what love is? I seem to know the answer. It took a long time before she replied. From the day I liked you, I never wanted a response from you. Let's both think about that. Haley got the news of our separation from somewhere and started coming to the office more often to see me, all of which the receptionist kept away. When she couldn't see me at the company, she went to squat on me at home. I frowned and just felt impatient. Haley, please behave yourself. I'm already married. Are you still up for being a third? Her face changed from red to white to red again. Lowering her head, she whispered, but you don't like her, do you, Rocky? The person you've liked since you were a child has always been me. What makes you think that I would like a liar who is full of lies and takes credit for others? Haley didn't continue to pester me for the next few days. She evaporated as if she had disappeared from my world. I thought she had finally given up, but then I got a call from Haley's mom. She asked me with a sobbing voice, Rocky, can you come to the hospital for a while? Haley had a car accident and just came to her senses, clamoring to see you. Just think of it as Annie begging you. Will you come and see him? A huffing request from an elder who has loved me since I was a child. I really can't say the words to refuse. Besides, this is a good opportunity to make a clean break with Haley. Auntie, don't cry first. I'll go over now. Haley's body was covered in bandages. Luckily, this time the injury wasn't as serious as a few years ago. Seeing me, she leaked out a big smile. Maybe the movement was too big and involved the wound. She huffed backward and collected her facial expression. You came. I knew you couldn't let go of me. I placed the fruit basket I'd bought downstairs at the hospital on the table in front of her window. You're overthinking it. I just came to see you for your mom's sake. What happened? Where did you hit this time? Her eyes began to avert and the words didn't come out with much conviction. Got distracted and accidentally hit a curbstone. It was obvious that she was lying because she almost took her life in the last car accident. She had to be much more careful than normal normal people when driving. So the claim of being lost in thought wasn't believable. There was only one possibility why she did that, a repeat of the same trick. I sighed and looked at her seriously. You're joking with your life, you know that? Her voice trembled and tears were about to fall as she looked at me. Rocky, I didn't give her a chance to speak. Years ago, I could have taken care of you when you were in an accident, because back then we were friends. Hairy kids who grew up together. You didn't betray me, didn't cheat on me. Even if you treated me badly, that was based on the premise that you loved someone else. But it's different now. You betrayed our love, even our marriage. We can't go back is what we can't go back. Consider your parents and don't do such stupid things in the future. I took a long breath after saying that. My voice slowed down a few points. I won't come to see you again, so be good. On the way home, I suddenly missed Serena a lot. I sent her a message, "What's up?" She didn't get back to me. I guess it didn't work out. In the evening, I met some friends for drinks. I gargled a few times and doused my arms with wine to make myself smell like a drunk. As they watched, dumbfounded, I threw my cell phone at Jack. I tossed my cell phone to Jack. "Call your sister-in-law and tell her I'm drunk. Tell her to come pick me up." Jack stammers, "Serena?" I glared at him. Nonsense. Who else could it be? Get a move on. Serena pushed open the door to the compartment and I was sitting in the corner, quiet. I knew it was a shame to pretend to be drunk, but I couldn't think of anything else to do. She comes over to me and pulls me in, and I duck under the pretense that I don't recognize her. Then I squinted at her until I realized who she was and smiled and jumped up and hugged her around the waist. "Honey, what took you so long? I've been waiting for you." A few buddies around. I could tell they admired my acting talent. Under the dim light, Serena's cheeks were fluttering with 2 blushes. It was very pretty. She patted me on the head and awkwardly said goodbye to a few people. "I'll take that one first." She told me to let go, and I immediately did, taking her hand instead. I asked her, "Honey, where are we going?" She replied, "Home, our home." Her eyes lit up, and the light fell in like little stars jumping around. Well, our home. She moved back into our marital home. We were officially in couple mode. I would bring me a bouquet of flowers or a beautifully wrapped cupcake on my way home from work. She would also learn to cook my favorite dishes. I've stopped her from going into the kitchen because I don't think she's a good cook. After all, I didn't marry her to serve me. In Serena's house, she was a young lady who never touched water. Now that she's married, she's still the princess in the palm of her hand. It turns out that after marriage, you don't need to be sensational. As long as the water flows smoothly, plain and cozy, it's good. Haley's mom called me a few times, asking me to visit Haley again, and I refused. I couldn't give her any illusions that we could still be together. It was better for all of us. A few months later, Serena found out she was pregnant. I hugged her and cried and laughed. She laughed at me. "What's the big deal?" I held my head high and looked proud. "Of course it's a big deal. You gave birth to me." Near the new year, I received a strange phone call. I answered it because it was a local New York number. It was Haley, who I hadn't seen in a while. "I heard Serena is pregnant." I gave a careless hum and asked her, "Do you have something to do? I'm hanging up now." "Don't hang up, Rocky, don't hang up yet." Without waiting for her to finish her sentence, I hung up the phone and dragged the number into my blacklist. After blacklisting, I just pressed the lock screen on my phone and threw it aside. Serena walked in holding her stomach. "Rocky, your son wants fondue." "Don't be ridiculous. It's obviously a daughter." I touched her bulging belly and carefully pushed her out the door. "Wife, go get changed. Let's head out for Japanese sushi. It's a long life. I'm glad I have you for the rest of my life."